So by now, you've probably seen this video that was shared on social media and the Daily Faceoff pages, because it's been making the rounds. It was published earlier yesterday. It's at 2.2 million views, 300 likes, 500 retweets, most of them are quote tweets, and 1,000 replies. People are getting frustrated because this video is quite a doozy. Take a look at this. Frank's rant. Frank Seravalli shared some very brutal and harsh opinions on Sidney Crosby's actions during All-Star Weekend. Now, link is going to be in the description to, firstly, this video, but I'm also going to leave a link in the description to this article on hockeypatrol.com, because what the article does is it transcribes what it is that Seravalli is talking about. Before we dive into the word-for-word translation, though, or not translation, transcription, excuse me, I wanted to give just a basic summary as to what Frank is talking about and why he's so adamant in the brutal feelings that he has towards this situation. Essentially, he's talking about Pittsburgh Penguins superstar Sidney Crosby, and how, during the All-Star Draft from earlier this week, Crosby was not present at the event. He had a video on the Jumbotron that showed him saying, yeah, sorry, I'm not there, but I've got some other little kid, a Timbits kid, in my place that will participate in the draft. Crosby was then later showing up at the event during the skills competition where he was a guest passer for the one-timer challenge. Now, on the day that Sidney Crosby was absent during the fantasy draft, there were videos going around of Crosby, like, skating on an outdoor rink, doing some cool things, just having a chill time, having some good times, and Frank Seravalli had an issue with that. This is the comment that he made. I think it's garbage that year in and year out on All-Star Weekend, when Sidney Crosby decides to show up and play, he doesn't get more heat from anyone. A video surfaces of him skating at an outdoor rink in Montana enjoying some R&R yesterday. Why is it that every other NHL All-Star can show up and participate in the player draft, but Sidney Crosby doesn't, and no one says boo about it? Now, this is one comment made by Seravalli in the entire, 1.5 minute long video, and I'll say it, man, the guy is really, really angry about it. Like, or at least that's what it sounds like when you listen to the video. He is heated. And all the responses to this, rightfully so, go out there and put Seravalli on blast. Leave it to the 35-year-old who's coping about how he looks like he's in his 50s to criticize one of the greatest hockey players of all time. If this was anyone else, people would care, Seravalli said. It's not anyone else. Hope that helps, Frank. What an awful thing to say about Sidney Crosby, one of the greatest players of all time to ever play the game. He does more for hockey and the NHL, more importantly, in 5 minutes than you have ever done in your life, Frank. You should be ashamed of this video. Then maybe don't make the All-Star game so boring. The quotes are toasting Frank Seravalli. Nobody cares. Literally nobody cares. Most out-of-touch take I've seen on a sports topic. I mean, look, I'll be honest and I say that Frank Seravalli has the right to share his opinion. And I, quite frankly, like it because it gives us stuff to talk about here. But realistically, if you're going to go out there and blast Sidney Crosby, of all people, for doing what it is that most of these players want to do, I feel like if there's anybody going out there and really diving deep into what Sidney Crosby's pros and cons have been surrounding the NHL and its growth over the past 20 years, this guy pretty much revived hockey in Pittsburgh. He's part of the reason American hockey today is in the state where it's been. He was one of the icons. So if there's anybody that has the right to go out there and skip out on a fantasy draft that everybody kind of knows is a little bit of a joke, like not really too many people are taking it super seriously, it's Sidney Crosby that probably has that ability to get by, get away with it, and no one's going to bat an eye. Seravalli is essentially saying with this quote and the rest of the video that it's kind of BS, that if anybody else did it, we'd be all up in their faces and all clamoring about it, but because it's Sidney Crosby, he gets the pass. Yeah, that's right. Sidney Crosby does get the pass. Crosby can do whatever the heck he wants. He's so old now. Like, he's old. He's doing what it is he's doing this season. He's having potentially one of the best years of his career in terms of goal scoring. And what? Like, what, you gonna go out there and start talking trash to Sidney Crosby because he's missing out on an all-star fantasy draft? I don't know, dude. That feels kind of wrong in my opinion. And I guess in the opinions of most of the repliers here on Twitter as well. In fact, during this same All-Star press conference, or not press conference, but yeah, I guess press conference is the right word, there was a really interesting Crosby moment that kind of illuminates the good that Crosby has been doing for the game. All of that being said, Seravalli was not exactly correct with all of his points about Crosby. For one, Crosby has been to 10 All-Star games, including this year's. He certainly is no Alex Ovechkin, who has regularly skipped the event, taking the one-game suspension instead. In fact, Sidney Crosby went out of his way at this year's event to address a very serious issue with a reporter, showcasing his class and respect for the event and the sport overall. Mark Lazarus tweeted this out from the press conference day yesterday. A reporter asked Sidney Crosby if there's a problem with hockey's culture. Crosby said he didn't think this huge scrum of 15-second soundbites was a good venue for such a topic, and he said he'd be happy to talk privately with the reporter after. Then he actually did. Good on him. So, there you go, Captain Sid still showing a level of maturity to be able to control the game and the sport that he has been such a legend at in order to say, hey, we need to have a conversation about this, but it's not going to be here during the 15-second sound bites of the press conferences and all the microphones. I can talk to you privately, and they did just that. Talk about a mature leader on and off the ice. He has certainly grown from being Sid the Kid, the whiny crybaby Crosby that he was when he made his debut in 2005. We're nearly 20 years later, and the guy is such a professional that it's almost, awe-inspiring to see how much of a pro he has become. So the fact that he's missing out on an all-star fantasy draft, sure, I can understand why it would rub some people the wrong way, but Frank Seravalli in this angry rant really is just going out there and I'd say brutally laying the smack down on Crosby in a way that I think is unfair. Sure, be angry about it all you want, but the way he expressed that anger was so much, I think it's a little bit disproportional, Like, the punishment doesn't fit the crime here, and that's what a lot of the quote replies and everything are going out there and saying. I mean, there's some really funny stuff in here, not gonna lie. Frank working hard to find something to complain about, this is pathetic, like, it's a lot. And I get it, people can make jokes about all of the aging stuff as well. I guess we could talk about that too, because Sidney Crosby is 36 years old, which is kind of nuts when you think about it. I mean, Sid the Kid was just a kid 20 years ago, right? Sidney Crosby is 36. Frank Seravalli, how freaking old is Frank Seravalli again? He's 35, so he's a year under Sid. And also, you gotta remember, Frank is from Philly, so yeah, I guess if you wanted to talk about Philly-Pittsburgh connections, there's probably a reason that Seravalli is a lot more harsh on Sidney Crosby than your average Joe. But either way, let me know your thoughts in the comment section below about Seravalli's really angry rant. And maybe I haven't made the point as clear as I could have in this video. The guy was like fuming in the video. Go ahead and listen to it. The link is in the description. Also, link is in the description to this Hockey Patrol article because it's a very intriguing thing that I think we haven't really seen too much discussion about other than the people going out there and roasting Daily Faceoff for putting this on air. Frank Seravalli absolutely tarnished Sidney Crosby in this video. Click the link in the description if you want to see it yourself. Let me know your thoughts in the comments about this entire discussion and whether or not it's fair for Sidney Crosby, of all people, to be missing out time during All-Star Weekend. I hope you enjoyed this video, and bye.